So I was hyping it up too much. I lost track of time. So next school up is mission.
Samantha.
All right. So the second mission crew, it is your time.
Let's move this. Can we move it out of the way?
May we? Where am I standing?
Do you guys want to move this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
No, we got it. Here, just push it right here. Actually, a little more. Okay, there. I think it's good.
Okay.
Okay, make sure you move around.
Bienvenidos todos, me llamo Randy.
Gratitude to Brendan.
Ciao mio, io non me Samantha.
Hello, my name is Alejandro.
So I do want to start by saying thank you for showing up here. It really shows that you guys care about your causes and just like that you really want to bring change. I do want to start though, however, with a story with like our issue because our topic is about English language learners. So what basically happens is that in our English language department for many of the schools is that many students they do face struggle and they do face like issues with like the EL department and I'll explain more later and we all will. So basically I want to start with a story. I knew a friend Jorge which I met around sophomore year. Basically what happened with him, right, which does relate to more EL students, was that from the beginning so he came from South America and then he moved here, and then what happened was that at some point in his academic career he was skyrocketing with like everything with his grades and work and all that stuff. But then there was a point where he hit like a plateau where he kind of stopped growing because like due to circumstances living here, and yeah, because you all know how expensive SF can be and it's just like insanely difficult because like the prices go up and everything. So what happened was that he hit a plateau where he could not grow from where he was, and which ended up having him like to work more, and then like he felt he wasn't confident enough to go and like reach the next phase of his academic career and like success. So he eventually did ended up like dropping out of school and, like so he could support his family because he didn't really get that much help. And that's just like one example of like many EL students that we face here. And also too is that we all want to see like our peers and our people succeed in life, and that's why this is really important to us.
So you might all wonder why we chose EL students. So let me tell you from my personal experience. I was an EL student for 1.5 years. I sincerely felt dehumanized and I was oppressed all the time because I couldn't express myself. I spoke Spanish all the time, and honestly, like I couldn't tell my teachers how I really felt because half of my teachers were just English students, English teachers. My peers were English students, they only spoke English. So we want this to be powerful for those students because I know half of the people here speak more than one language. But Spanish is not the only language that we're trying to look for, because I know that there's people here that speak Chinese, Arabic, and Russian, Italian, French. So we're not only focusing on Spanish speakers, we're focusing on the overall image of EL students. In my AP statistics class this year, there's a big amount of EL students. And when I personally try to explain it to them, how to do a problem, how to solve it, and I ask them, like, hey, do you understand? They're like, yeah. However, I know for a fact that they don't really understand because once it comes to the test, they have the lowest scores. We don't want them to feel less than just because they have the lower scores because they don't understand what we're really trying to explain. We want them to be powerful. We don't want them to be Americanized. We don't want them to be involved into this American revolution so they can assimilate to each other. We want them to feel proud of their culture, proud of who they are, and proud of where they came from.
So we decided to focus on EL students because 54% of them are not improving on the CEL test.
And 84% are not meeting EL standards, and the society out there is stopping us and struggling for EL students who are not progressing in their own classes. And they're trying to fit in with the society out there that is like a stencil for us. Is a stencil for us to copy and to be in a certain way and to fit in. Even though they try to speak English, they are being made fun of, being bullied, and being a lot stressed out with school.
And EL students are not prepared to succeed when they graduate. And we had more EL students coming in to Mission High School last year, and they're not ready to move to higher classes because they don't have the resources they need, also the support they need.
So adding on with to Samantha and Naja's point, so our group of the EL department, they do face 4 major problems. And like I mentioned before with Jorge's story, which was like adapting to like this new culture, American culture, and just like leaving behind what they have. Because trying to finish high school in 4 years for like an EL student is really difficult. Because it's like a catch-up game because they really got to catch up and like progress and all that stuff. And then another thing too that happened that relates to like most of EL students was, so like I mentioned before, San Francisco is pretty expensive, and yeah, it gets expensive, and many of families or cultures, they do have to work in order to like support their family and all their financial needs, which then leaves like the school, like they're not aware of like the resources that happens or goes around after school, so they can't really progress because they don't feel confident enough with their English to progress more.
The future of education, as I see it, is English learning. The amount of English learning students is only going to grow from what we currently have today. And now what we want to do is be ready for this change, this growth, okay? So we want to implement systems where we can improve the education. We want to benefit these students. We want them to have a valid education, something that connects to them. Now, as my partner Brandon here said, he said, we don't want them to assimilate. We want them to embrace their culture. When you come to the United States, you come for opportunity. You don't come to abandon who you came as. Now, the way we plan to do this is possibly hiring more educators and teachers that are bilingual. They can speak with the students who need this extra help, and to also speak with the students who have already, but more so are prepared for what's to come. People who can speak English. We want to create systems and programs where they can become benefited, so they can learn, they can grow, and they can become more confident, because what's happening is there's a very large lack of confidence. And we want, when you go to school, you don't go to school to feel intimidated or to feel like you are less than anybody else. You go to school to better yourself and to educate yourself. This is the conclusion of our presentation. Thank you.
What makes you passionate about this topic? What sparks inspiration?
So good question about what you said about what sparks our passion for is that since we all come from different cultures and like we know a lot of people and we have like a lot of relatives, like we do want to see our people like progress and succeed in life.
Adding to what Randy said, my parents were both immigrants, and they had an awful time going through the educational system, but they made it, today. They had me, and I'm a product of their success, and I believe that all students, no matter where they come from, should be given an opportunity, and it doesn't matter who you are or anything like that. It just matters that you're given a chance, and that's what these students need.
So what are some methods you're going to use in order to create?
So some methods are gonna be, we're gonna try to hire more teachers that instead of just speaking English and Spanish, we're gonna hire people that speak English and Arabic, English and Chinese, English and Italian, because we have multiple races in our school that don't just speak Spanish. We always focus on Spanish, but we have more culture in our schools. Another one will be within our peers. We're gonna go into classes in every period to help them out because we speak more than one language, and that's the best way to do it.
How would you include SFUC as a whole, or would it just be new mission?
I think what we want to do first is set a precedent. We want to implement it into our own school system, and if it succeeds, and we hope that it does, we sincerely hope that it succeeds and it benefits these students, that it can then set off a ripple effect where we'll then expand from the rest of the SFUSD, and then from there expand to other unified school districts. I know for a fact Los Angeles has a very high immigrant population, and we don't want to turn away these kids from their very basic human right of education. We want them to, rather than leaving and going for work, we want them to value education and to stay in school so that they can achieve much higher than what they're going to be subjected to if they were not to be in school.
With the grant, if
you got the grant, would you just use the money to hire teachers, or would you use it for other things?
So you're saying what would we use the money for, right? We would also hire tutors. So after school, students can come in and we can help them with their homeworks and other stuff they need, so they can improve their grades and they can move to the next level as well.
Is there any more questions in the audience or the council? Teachers? No?
Thank you.